They mocked a beggar for 7 years. He owned everything they had. Stories like this, every week, ancient wisdom, modern lessons. I am the LoreKeeper. Subscribe now. Hit the bell. Don't miss your story. Imagine a woman who danced at her husband's funeral. She did not cry. She did not mourn. She laughed out loud while his body lay in a wooden coffin. She said the ancestors had finally set her free from poverty. But 3 days later, that same woman was on her knees, begging that coffin for forgiveness. What the lawyer read from the will left her screaming in the streets. Long ago, in a quiet village in the heart of Africa, there lived a carpenter named Kwame. He was a simple man, not tall, not handsome, not rich, just simple. He had rough hands from years of working with wood. He had sawdust in his hair most days. He wore the same faded cloth to the market every week. Kwame lived in a small compound at the edge of the village. The walls were mud. The roof was thatch. The furniture inside was handmade, beautiful pieces he had carved himself, but nothing that looked expensive to untrained eyes. His workshop was behind the house, a small shed with tools hanging on the walls, pieces of wood stacked in corners, the smell of fresh shavings always in the air. Kwame spent most of his time there, carving and sanding and building. The villagers respected Kwame. He was honest. He never cheated anyone. If he said he would finish a chair by Friday, the chair was ready by Thursday. If he quoted a price, he never changed it. He helped neighbors fix broken doors and tables without asking for payment. But respect does not fill a woman's heart when she wants more. Kwame's wife was named Afia. She was beautiful, very beautiful, skin smooth like shea butter, eyes bright like stars. When she walked through the market, men turned to look. Women whispered in jealousy. Afia had married Kwame 15 years ago. Back then, she saw potential in him. He was skilled with his hands. He worked hard. She thought he would grow. She thought he would become rich. She thought the small compound would become a mansion. She thought the simple furniture would become a business empire. But years passed, and Kwame stayed the same. The compound did not grow. The workshop did not expand. Kwame seemed content with his simple life. He made enough to eat, enough to clothe the family, enough to send their 3 children to school. But there was never extra, never luxury, never gold chains or fancy cloth or big celebrations. Afia grew bitter. She looked at her friends' husbands. Mensa, the trader, had 3 cars. Kofi, the cocoa buyer, had a 2-story house. Even old Yao, the fisherman, had managed to buy his wife gold earrings for their anniversary. What did Afia have? Sawdust, splinters, the smell of wood that never left Kwame's clothes no matter how many times she washed them. She began to complain, quietly at first, then louder. My friends' husbands drive cars, mine drives nails. Kwame would not answer. He would simply eat his food, looking at his plate. Mensa's wife just bought cloth from Accra, real wax print. I am still wearing the same dress from 5 years ago. Kwame would nod slowly. We have enough, Afia. The children are healthy. The roof does not leak. God has blessed us. Blessed? Afia's voice would rise. You call this blessed? We are poor, Kwame, poor. And you do nothing about it. You sit in that shed all day making your little chairs while other men build empires. Kwame would finish his food. He would stand up. He would go back to his workshop without a word. This happened every night for years. The children watched. They saw their mother's cruelty. They saw their father's silence. They did not understand why he never fought back, why he never shouted, why he simply accepted her insults like rain falling on stone. The eldest child was a son named Kofi, 15 years old. He once asked his father about it. Papa, why do you let Mama talk to you like that? Why don't you say something? Kwame looked at his son with tired but peaceful eyes. The tree does not argue with the wind, my son. It simply grows deeper roots. Your mother is unhappy. Arguing will not make her happy. Only time and truth can do that. Kofi did not understand, but he remembered those words. As years went on, Afia's behavior got worse. She stopped cooking for Kwame. She stopped washing his clothes. She treated him like his servant in his own house. And then came the other men. It started with whispers in the village. People saw Afia walking with Mensa the trader. They were too close, laughing too much, disappearing into his compound for hours. Then it was Kofi, the cocoa buyer, then a stranger from the city who came to buy land, then another and another. The whole village knew, everyone, except they thought Kwame. But Kwame knew. He always knew. One night, a neighbor named Mama Akosu came to warn him. She was a kind old woman who could not bear to see a good man suffer in ignorance. Kwame, she said carefully, there are things being said about your wife. I think you should know. Kwame raised his hand gently. I know, Mama. I have always known. The old woman was shocked. You know and you do nothing? Kwame smiled sadly. What should I do? Beat her? Divorce her? Send my children's mother away in shame? That will not change her heart. It will only break my children. But she disrespects you. She makes you a fool in front of everyone. The fool is not the man who is betrayed, Mama. The fool is the one who betrays. My conscience is clear. That is enough for me. Mama Akosu left confused. She had never met a man like Kwame. Was he a saint, a coward, or did he know something that others did not? The answer came 15 years into the marriage. Kwame fell ill. It started with a cough that would not go away, then weakness, then pain in his chest. The village healer gave him herbs. They did not work. They took him to the hospital in the city. The doctors ran tests. Cancer. Advanced. There was nothing they could do. They brought Kwame home to die. Afia's reaction shocked even those who knew her cruelty. She was not sad. She was relieved. Finally, she whispered to her friends when she thought no one was listening. Finally, I will be free. I can find a real man, a man with money, a man who can give me the life I deserve. She barely visited Kwame in his sick room. When she did, she complained about the cost of medicine. She complained about the time wasted. She looked at him with disgust, not love. Just die quickly, she whispered at him one night when she thought he was asleep. Stop wasting my time. Kwame heard. His eyes were closed, but his ears worked perfectly. A single tear rolled down his cheek. The children took care of their father. Kofi, now 30 years old, fed him and bathed him. The two daughters, Ama and Efua, sat with him through the long nights. They told him stories. They held his hand. They told him they loved him. Kwame's last days were peaceful because of his children, not because of his wife. On the night before he died, Kwame called for a nurse. Not his wife, not even his children, just the nurse. I need you to do something for me, he whispered. His voice was weak but clear. Take this envelope. After I am gone, give it to my lawyer. Only my lawyer. Tell him it is the final instruction. The nurse took the envelope. It was thick, heavy. She did not know what was inside. Promise me, Kwame said. Promise me on your ancestors. I promise, sir, the nurse said. Kwame smiled. It was a strange smile, peaceful, but also knowing, like a man who could see the future. Thank you, he said. Now I can rest. He died the next morning, quietly, without struggle. He simply stopped breathing while the sun rose outside his window. The funeral preparation began. In the village, funerals were big events, important events. How you buried someone showed how much you loved them. Rich families spent fortunes on coffins, on food, on music, on mourners. Afia wanted to spend nothing. She told the children, he was a poor carpenter. We will bury him like a poor carpenter. Simple coffin, simple funeral. No need to waste money on a man who never made any. Kofi was furious. Mama, he was our father. He deserves respect. Respect? Afia laughed.
Respect is for men who achieve something. Your father achieved nothing. He died as he lived, poor and useless." She walked away. Kofi and his sisters used their own savings. They bought a decent coffin. They arranged for proper food. They hired drummers. They did everything they could to honor their father. The funeral came. Afia wore black, but her face told a different story. She smiled. She greeted guests with enthusiasm. She ate heartily. She drank palm wine. She danced when the drums played. People were shocked. They whispered to each other, "Look at her. Her husband is not yet in the ground and she celebrates. She is shameless, completely shameless. Poor Kwame, what a woman she married." But Afia did not care about whispers. She was free. Free from the smell of sawdust, free from the shame of poverty, free to find a real man. That night, after most guests had left, Afia sat near the coffin with her closest friends. They drank and laughed together. The children had gone to bed, exhausted from crying. Afia was drunk, her words slurred. Her true feelings came out without filter. 20 years of
"Splinters," she shouted, raising her cup. 20 years of patience, wife. 20 years of waiting for him to become something. Well, his time ran out. Her friends laughed nervously. This was too much, even for them. But Afia was not finished. She stood up, she walked to the coffin, she looked down at her husband's body, dressed in his finest cloth, hands folded peacefully. "You know what your problem was, Kwame? You had no ambition, no fire, no hunger. You are content with nothing. And you tried to make me content with nothing too." She poured palm wine onto the coffin. It splashed across the wood and dripped onto the floor. "But I wanted more. I deserved more. And now I will get more. Rot fast, Kwame. Rot fast so I can finally live." She laughed, loud and cruel. Her friends did not laugh with her. They sat in uncomfortable silence. No one noticed the small figure in the doorway. Little Ya, the youngest granddaughter, only 6 years old. She had woken up and come looking for her mother. She saw everything. She heard everything. She ran back to her bed crying. She did not understand why grandmother was being so mean to grandfather, even though he was sleeping and could not hear. But he was not sleeping. He was dead, and the dead, as the elders say, hear everything. The burial happened the next day. Kwame was put in the ground with prayers and songs. The children wept. Afia did not. Life continued. Afia immediately began selling Kwame's things, his tools, his wood, even the furniture he had made. She sold everything from his workshop within a week. "Good riddance," she said, counting the small amount of money. "All this junk for so little. He really was worthless." The children begged her to stop. Those were their father's things, his life's work. But Afia did not listen. 3 days after the burial, a car arrived at the compound. It was a nice car, clean and official looking. A man in a suit stepped out. He carried a briefcase. "I am looking for the family of Kwame Mensah," he said. Afia stepped forward quickly. "I am his wife, his widow." "I am Mr. Owusu. I am a lawyer. I handled your husband's affairs." Afia frowned. "What affairs? He was a carpenter. He had no affairs." The lawyer smiled slightly. "Perhaps we should go inside. There are things to discuss." They gathered in the main room. Afia, the 3 children, and 2 of Kwame's brothers who lived nearby. The lawyer opened his briefcase and removed a thick folder. "Your husband came to me many years ago. He was very specific about how his estate should be handled." "Estate?" Afia laughed. "What estate? A pile of wood and some rusty tools? I already sold everything. It came to almost nothing." The lawyer looked at her with an expression she could not read. Was it pity? Contempt? Something else? "Mrs. Mensah, were you aware of your husband's business?" "Business? He was a carpenter. He made furniture, chairs, tables, simple things." "He made furniture, yes, but perhaps you did not know who bought that furniture." Afia shrugged. Villagers, farmers, people who could not afford real furniture. The lawyer opened the folder. He removed a stack of photographs. He placed them one by one on the table. Afia looked. Her eyes widened. The photographs showed furniture, But not the simple chairs and tables she remembered. These were masterpieces, intricate carvings, beautiful designs, works of art, and they were displayed in grand places, museums, galleries, rich people's homes in foreign countries. Your husband, he said slowly, was considered one of the finest wood carvers in Africa. His work was collected by galleries in Europe and America. Each piece sold for thousands, some for tens of thousands. Afia's mouth opened. No words came out. He kept his success secret, he said. He worked at night mostly, when you and the children slept. He sent his best pieces to dealers in the city who sold them internationally. The money was deposited in accounts that only he and I knew about. Kofi leaned forward. How much money, sir? The lawyer looked at the papers. At the time of the death of your father's estate was valued at approximately, he paused, $2.3 million American dollars. The room went completely silent. Afia felt her heart stop. $2.3 million. American dollars. Her husband, the poor carpenter she had mocked for 20 years, was a millionaire, had been a millionaire. While she complained about his sawdust and his simple clothes, he had been creating art that rich foreigners paid fortunes to own. No, she whispered. No, that's impossible. He was poor. We were poor. We lived in a mud house. He wore the same cloth every week. He lived simply by choice, the lawyer said. He told me once that he did not trust wealth. He said it changed people, made them cruel, made them forget what mattered. He wanted to see if his family would love him without the money. He wanted to see who they really were. Afia felt the room spinning. Who they really were. He had been watching, testing, all those years, all her insults, all her cruelty, all her affairs. He knew, he saw, he recorded everything. The lawyer continued. Your husband left very specific instructions for the distribution of his estate. He pulled out the will, the document from the envelope Kwame had given to the nurse, the final instruction. To my children, Kofi, Ama, and Efwa, I leave my entire estate in trust. They will receive full access when each reaches the age of 25. Until then, the trust will be managed by my lawyer and my brother Ya, who I trust completely. The children looked at each other. Tears streamed down their faces. Their father had provided for them, even after death. To my grandchildren, the lawyer continued, I leave funds for education, the best schools, the best opportunities. They will never want for anything. Afia sat up straighter. The children and grandchildren were taken care of, but she was the widow. Surely the bulk of the estate would go to her. That was tradition. That was right. The lawyer turned a page. To my wife, Afia. Afia held her breath. To my wife, Afia, who found me lacking in every way, who mocked my work, who despised my simple life, who sought comfort in other men's beds while I slept alone, who counted the days until my death so she could be free. Afia's face went pale. The children stared at her. Kwame's brother shifted uncomfortably. To my wife, I leave exactly what she gave me throughout our marriage. A pause. The lawyer looked up. Nothing. Afia screamed. What? Not one pesewa, not one cedis, not one grain of rice. She gave me nothing but contempt, and so she receives nothing but paper with these words. Afia stood up, knocking her chair over. You cannot do this. I am his wife. I have rights. The law says... The law, Mr. Usu interrupted calmly, says that a man may distribute his estate as he wishes. Your husband was very careful about this. The will is ironclad. It has been reviewed by 3 separate legal authorities. There is no challenge you can bring. But, Afia looked around wildly, at her children who looked away, at Kwame's brothers who looked satisfied, at the lawyer who looked at her with that same unreadable expression. There is more, the lawyer said. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out another envelope. This one was thinner. He opened it and removed photographs. Afia looked. Her eyes widened. Afia with Mensa the trader, kissing behind his warehouse. Afia with Kofi the cocoa buyer, entering a hotel in the city.
Affair with the stranger from the capital, accepting money after their encounter. More photographs, dates, times, witnesses, a complete record of every affair, every betrayal, every lie. Your husband, the lawyer said, knew everything. He documented everything. Not to punish you. He said he hoped he would never have to use these. He hoped you would change. He hoped you would learn to love him for who he was, not what he had. He gave you 20 years to change. Afia stared at the photographs, her secrets laid bare, her shame exposed. But you did not change. In fact, you got worse. And on the night before his death, he gave me his final instruction. If you showed any remorse at his funeral, any genuine grief, any love at all, even at the end, he would have left you a portion, enough to live comfortably. He wanted to give you one last chance. The lawyer paused. But he also suspected you would not take it, so he arranged for someone to watch, to listen, to report what happened at his coffin that night. Afia remembered. The palm wine she poured on the coffin, the cruel words she spoke, the laughter, the celebration. Little Ya, the granddaughter, she must have told someone what she saw. Afia collapsed into her chair. All strength left her body. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, your husband's will contains a provision for custody. Custody? Kofi asked. Your youngest siblings, the twins, Kweku and Akua. They are only 12, still minors. Your father did not want them raised by, he glanced at Afia, by influences he deemed harmful. Custody of the twins transfers to your Aunt Ajua along with funds for their care. Afia found her voice. You cannot take my children. They are not being taken. They are being protected. The court has already been notified. Based on the evidence of your behavior, your neglect, your moral character, the transfer of custody was approved before you even knew about this will. It was over.
Completely over. Afia had nothing. No money, no children, no respect. The whole village would hear about this. The whole region. The wife who mocked her millionaire husband for being poor. The woman who danced on his grave and lost everything. She ran from the room. She ran through the village. She ran to the cemetery where Kwame was buried just 3 days ago. She fell on the grave and sobbed. Kwame, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Please forgive me. Please. But the grave was silent. The dead may hear everything, but they do not answer. The villagers gathered to watch. They had heard the news already. It spread like fire through dry grass. They watched the woman who had scorned a good man beg his grave for forgiveness she would never receive. The months that followed were hard for Afia. She had no home. The compound belonged to the children's trust now, and they did not want her there. Coffee was firm. You treated him like dirt for 20 years, Mama. You made his life miserable. You cheated on him. You humiliated him. And when he died, you danced. I cannot forget that. I cannot forgive that. Afia moved in with a cousin. But the cousin grew tired of her. She moved again and again. No one wanted the woman with the ruined reputation. She tried to find another husband. No one was interested. Who would marry a woman known for cruelty to a man who had loved her? Who would trust her? She tried to find work, but she had never worked in her life. She had no skills, no education. She had spent 20 years waiting for her husband to make her rich while doing nothing herself. 1 year after Kwame's death, Afia was desperate. She had nowhere to go, nothing to eat. She had sold the gold earrings another man had given her. She had sold the clothes. She had nothing left. She went to Kwame's sister, Aunt Ajua, the woman who now raised the twins, the woman who had always been kind even when others were cruel. Please, Afia begged, I have nothing, nowhere to go. I will do anything. I will be a servant, a cleaner, anything. Just let me stay. Let me see my children sometimes. Aunt Ajua looked at her for a long time. This was the woman who destroyed her brother's happiness, who made him cry when he thought no one was watching, who broke his heart again and again. But Ajua was kind, like Kwame was kind. "You can stay," she said finally. "You will walk. You will cook and clean and fetch water. You will be a servant, in fact, since you refused to be a wife. And you may see the children, but you will not poison them with bitterness. You will not teach them your ways. You will show them, through your actions, that you have changed." Afia agreed. She had no choice. She moved into a small room in Ajua's compound. She woke early. She worked hard. She cooked meals she used to refuse to cook. She cleaned floors she used to walk over with dirty shoes. And slowly, very slowly, she began to understand. She understood what Kwame had given her: a home, security, a faithful husband who never raised his hand to her, never shouted, never left even when she gave him every reason to go. He had loved her quietly, completely, without asking for love in return. She understood what she had thrown away. Not the money, though that hurt, but the man. The good, patient, kind man who carved beauty with his hands and asked for nothing but a little respect. She understood that her punishment was not the poverty, it was the knowledge of what she had lost, the knowledge that she had held treasure in her hands and called it trash. The twins grew up. They visited her sometimes. She told them stories about their father, true ones now, not the bitter lies she used to tell. She told them he was a great man, an artist, a patient soul. She told them to be like him, not like her. Coffin and his sisters eventually softened. They did not forgive completely. Some wounds are too deep, but they allowed their mother back into their lives, carefully, conditionally. On the 10th anniversary of Kwame's death, the family gathered at his grave. Afia was there too. She was older now, gray-haired and bent from years of work. She placed flowers on the grave, real flowers, not palm wine. "I finally understand, Kwame," she whispered. "The tree does not argue with the wind. It grows deeper roots. You were the tree, I was the wind, and you grew so deep that even now you still stand. Even now your shade covers your children." She wept, but this time the tears were real. She looked up at the sky. "I will spend the rest of my life earning what I should have given you freely. It is too late for you, but maybe it is not too late for me." She never remarried. She never regained the children's full trust. She never escaped the whispers in the village. But she changed, truly changed, not because of the money she lost, but because of the love she finally recognized. And that was her redemption. Not happiness. She did not deserve happiness, but peace. The peace that comes from understanding your mistakes, from trying to be better, from teaching others through your failure so they do not repeat it. The elders of that village still tell this story. They tell it to young wives who despise their hard-working husbands. They tell it to women who chase wealth instead of character. They tell it to remind everyone that the quiet man in the corner might be a king in disguise, that patience is not weakness, that kindness is not stupidity. They tell it to teach the truth that Afia learned too late. The poorest man is not the one with empty pockets. The poorest man is the one with an empty heart. And the richest man is the one who loves without condition and gives without counting. Kwame was the richest man in that village, and Afia, with all her beauty and ambition, was the poorest of all. And that is the end of this tale. You stayed until the end. Do you know what that says about you? It says you are not like the others, the people who scroll mindlessly, looking for quick entertainment,
moving on before the lesson lands. They left. They always leave. But you stayed. You felt something. Maybe it was anger at Afia. Maybe it was sadness for Kwame. Maybe it was recognition, a moment that hit too close to home. Whatever it was, you stayed. And that means something. This is what I do. I am LoreKeeper. I dig into the places others are afraid to go. I pull out the truths that make people uncomfortable, the truths that change lives. If this story made you think, really think about how you treat the people who love you quietly, then I did my job. If it made you pause before complaining about someone who gives without asking, then the ancestors are pleased. But this is just one tale. I have hundreds more. Stories of betrayal and justice. Stories of patience rewarded. Stories that will make you laugh, weep, and question everything you thought you knew. You found this video for a reason. Maybe the algorithm brought you here, or maybe something else did. The ancestors work in mysterious ways. Here is what I know. You will never see the world the same way after watching my stories. And once you subscribe, once you join this family around the fire, you become part of something bigger, a community of people who understand that stories are not just entertainment, they are medicine, they are warning, they are wisdom passed down through generations. So here is my challenge to you. If you are the kind of person who values depth over distraction, subscribe. If you believe that lessons from our elders still matter in this modern world, subscribe. If you want to be reminded again and again what really matters in life, subscribe. Hit that button now. Turn on notifications, because the next story might be the one that changes your life. And share this video. Think of someone who needs to hear Kwane's story, a friend who takes their spouse for granted, a relative who chases money while ignoring love. This story could save their marriage. It could open their eyes. Be the one to send it to them. I am LoreKeeper, and I will see you at the next fire.